Now, if you loved the Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey wasn't exactly your cup of tea, Desolation of Smaug is what you've been looking for. It's so much darker in tone, there's a lot more action, and it feels more like the Lord of the Rings movies. Now, one of the biggest gripes that I had with An Unexpected Journey was there wasn't enough character development. They introduced Bilbo, Gandalf, Thorin Oakenshield, and a little bit of the dwarf who was the older dwarf with the white beard, Balin, I believe is his name. They introduced those 4 characters, but that's it. The other dwarves, they didn't really spend any time introducing them and explaining, you know, why they just want to have their home back. And that's not enough. Like, I don't care if dwarf number 5 dies, the dwarf number 8 dies. Okay, as long as it's not Thorin or Balin, I don't care, because they haven't given us a reason to appreciate them and care for them. Lord of the Rings was done so well because the first movie, for the first half, they introduced the 4 hobbits, Gandalf, and then Aragorn by the end of it. And then the second part of the movie, they introduced Legolas, Gimli, and Boromir, and they all had reasons for being there. They all had a backstory, and you felt attached to them. You cared if they died. If any of the dwarves die, you're like, as long as it's not Thorin and Balin, I'm fine with that. I don't care. And that was a negative for that movie. Desolation of Smaug brings a lot more attention to the dwarves. Thorin Oakenshield has a bigger backstory, so you care even more about his character. Balin, who I loved in the first movie, is now my favorite dwarf. He's the older dwarf with the white beard. He's the more wiser and more grounded dwarf. I liked his character a lot more in this movie. Bombur, the giant fat dwarf, who was put in the first movie for like humor purposes. I did not care for him. He's a fat dwarf that eats a lot. Not funny, but in this movie, I liked his character a lot more. There's a few parts there where I was like, oh, okay, his facial expressions are pretty funny there. And there's one scene that the entire theater erupted in laughter. I was with them. It just keeps going on and on and on. And then when it's done, he does something that's just really awesome. And I was like, Bombur, you stepped it up. So I really enjoyed that. There's 2 dwarf brothers that we get to know a little bit about in this movie. So there's just a lot more focus on specific dwarves, and I like that. Another thing is that they do, I'm not going to spoil anything that isn't already in the trailer, so if you've seen the trailer, you already know this, Legolas comes back. And that is good because it's a familiar face that you loved in the first 3 movies of The Lord of the Rings, and you care for his character. You know him. He's the same thing as Gandalf. You like that character. And he did not feel out of place in this movie. I was afraid that he would, but he felt right at home, and he's so much more... This is the best Legolas has ever been. Out of all the characters in this movie, Legolas killed the most orcs by far. He's just crazy. He's doing flips and twirls and like swinging his bow. He's using his bow as a weapon, and then his 2 daggers, and he's just, he killed so many things, and it's so awesome. The only thing is that they CGI'd the crap out of him. For him to do all these epic things, they had to CGI a lot. It looks okay, but there are a few parts in this movie where I will say that the CGI did not look up to par at all. And I don't understand, because it's Peter Jackson. Like, Hollywood would give him tons of money to make this movie, so I don't understand why they couldn't have made the CGI look a little bit better. Not specifically Legolas. Legolas looked good when he was doing the CGI stuff, so that was okay. It's just there are other parts in this movie where I was like, I don't get that. But anyway, very much enjoyed Legolas in this movie, and he does show up enough for me to be satisfied. There's also an elf character that was created, I think, specifically for this movie. Never been in the Tolkien books. It's a creation from Peter Jackson, so I really enjoyed her character. There is a little bit of a love story that kind of detracts from the movie. It doesn't feel like it should be in Middle-earth. I don't know why Peter Jackson included that. Same thing with Lord of the Rings, just the love parts of it with Aragorn. Not needed. I don't know if that's Hollywood saying you have to have a love story for this movie. But, yeah. Now, I will say, though, Gandalf, what's awesome about this movie is that Gandalf, you know, he's part of the party, but then he has his own agendas, and he takes off, and he goes on about and does his own thing. That's what Gandalf does. But what I like about this is that they showed what he does when he leaves the party. And man, the locations that he goes to are so well done, and you care for Gandalf that much more because of what he's going to go do and what he does, because of where he goes. And where he goes is just, Peter Jackson, you know how to create Middle-earth on screen. That is just, he knows what Middle-earth looks like. He read those books, he's like, this is what they look like. And he creates them. And it's just, damn, that's awesome. It looks like World of Warcraft. I always think of World of Warcraft when I watch the Lord of the Rings movies, because World of Warcraft is so based on Lord of the Rings. Anything that's fantasy is pretty much taken from Lord of the Rings. That's the basis for like wizards, elves, dwarves, pretty much everything that's fantasy. It all comes from that. So that's what I see when I see these movies, and it's so well done. Now, what else about this movie? One of the things about Gandalf is that what's his name? Radagast the Brown does show up in this movie. He's only in it very shortly, probably even less than the first one, and he's a little bit more calmer. He's not as crazy as he was in the first one, and the first thing that he says to Gandalf is hilarious. I loved it. Even if you hate his character, you're still going to enjoy what he says. And what I wanted was to see Saruman brought in with them, and the other two blue wizards, which we will never see in these movies because they have no part in it. They're just in Middle-earth doing their own thing. But I would have loved to have seen all 5 wizards together talking about what Gandalf and Radagast are investigating. And I would have loved to have seen like a battle with all the wizards attacking, you know, orcs and stuff. I think it would just have been awesome. But that'll never happen because the blue wizards just don't do anything. They're just there, which is unfortunate. What else? It's just okay. And of course, the ending with Smaug. Now, Smaug is... Oh, how do you explain him? He is a dragon, and they've done it so well that it feels like a huge dragon who's intimidating as hell, and you are so fearful of what he can do. He's just gigantic, and you're like, ah, this is bad. This is bad. He's so terrifying, and he's intellectual, and he's having conversations before he actually like does anything. Another cool thing about this movie is that because that Sauron isn't, you know, in full power, it's 60 years before Sauron shows up in Lord of the Rings, you know, as the Eye. Bilbo can put on the ring, and he won't be like, you know, the Nazgul aren't going to go after him. He can be having the ring for a while and nothing bad's going to happen. And I thought that was really cool, but you also see that the ring is already starting to take control over Bilbo. And that's really cool. I really like Martin Freeman. He is the best, you know, Hobbit that we've ever seen. Sam was close, but Bilbo as Martin Freeman is just amazing. You could have had Martin Freeman play as Frodo, because Frodo's a little bitch because of Elijah Wood mostly. But if you would have had Martin Freeman play as him, I would have been okay with that, and it probably wouldn't have been that much of a bitch. So there's that. But that's another negative, is that we didn't see enough of Bilbo. He does do a lot, but not as much as we saw him in the first one. So I'm hoping that they bring his character back to the forefront. It's just because they had so many other characters that they were kind of trying to like all shove into this movie, which is good. The pacing is a lot better, other than the ending when they go to the fish town, which is another thing that I like. They showed like another city of elves, a fish town of men, which I like because in the Lord of the Rings movies we only saw like these big cities, these big capitals like Gondor and you know, Helm's Deep, and it's just like these big places. I wanted to see like a regular fish town, kind of like the city of Bree. Or town of Bree. So I like that we got to see the different versions of more, you got to see a little bit more of Middle-earth, and that I really enjoyed. So, this movie I will give an 8 out of 10. I still think I preferred An Unexpected Journey a little bit more because of the music. The music in An Unexpected Journey is the best music of the entire, you know, 5 Lord of the Rings movies. It's just insane how well that score is. When I came home from watching An Unexpected Journey, I listened to it just full blast, and I was like, that is so good. The music in Desolation of Smaug is there, and it's okay. It's nothing to write home about. But I just loved An Unexpected Journey. Bilbo's character was just amazing in that movie, and I really got with his character. The locations that they used for An Unexpected Journey were that much more alive and fleshed out, and I just really enjoyed An Unexpected Journey. But I will still give this movie an 8 out of 10. And if you like Lord of the Rings and Unexpected Journey wasn't exactly your thing, you'll probably enjoy this more. I'm just in the minority where I really enjoyed it, An Unexpected Journey. And this one was still on par. So thank you all for watching. And I can say, because the beard is back in, you've been bearded in. Thanks for watching, everyone. Beardage!